So welcome everybody to the presentation of TTB service. In particular, we will start with the elevator pitch. So in order to understand the problem, the solution and the outcome. Biodiversity is a really important issue nowadays, and in particular, it's due mainly to the human activity and climate change. The loss of biodiversity is bringing disrupting changes to ecosystems, which then have huge impacts on human lives. So how TTB service is going to tackle this issue? TTB service is going to provide informations on temperatures and changes on endangered climate zones in order to activate innovative solutions and eventually providing the important information for their target customers to implement biological corridors. It's essential for TTB to have the 3 M's, which are mainly manpower, minute, and money. And in particular, we will see each of them afterwards in detail. The key DMs are Kay, which is the Chief Executive Officer, Alvaro, which is the Chief Financial Officer, Madalena, which is the Chief Operating Officer, myself, that I am the Chief Technology Officer, and Sarah, which is the head of the marketing department. So what is TTB's challenge? TTB's challenge is to identify the optimal geographical market to provide its service. And in particular, it's going to arrive and to the main solution and overcome this challenge thanks to its core values, which are sustainability, common good, collaboration, wisdom, and transparency, and always taking in mind its vision, which is providing the most efficient Earth observation service. This is the agenda. And in particular, we will start from the phase 1, of course, which is discover value. So in order to understand and to discover this value, TTB has done deep analysis, both internal and external. And in particular, to start off, we will display the backgrounds in which TTB is operating. So nowadays, we know that the world is affected by this phenomenon, which is called climate change. By climate change, we mean an increase by 0.7 degrees since the beginning of the 20th century of the average temperature of Earth's surface, a rise in the global average sea level, and decrease of 10% since the 60s of the planet covered by snow. In particular, climate change has led to loss of biodiversity. When we talk about loss of biodiversity, we can see some main facts, such as the fact that land-based habitats has fallen by 20%, 40% of amphibian species, and almost 33%, nearly a third of marine mammals are at risk or threatened. And we don't have this phenomenon just on animals, but when we mean species, we also mean plants. And indeed, we have seen a 7% reduction in forests, which is projected to increase due to land transformation for agriculture. So what is the international concern about the loss of biodiversity? So there is a Convention of Biological Diversity, which was signed in 1992 by 150 countries, and which is aimed to promote sustainable development. And in particular, it has set 21 targets and 10 milestones in order to living in harmony with nature by 2050. Moreover, the project is also aligned with the SDGs. In this slide, we can see the 3 main ones, which TTB is indeed aligned, which are the 8th, decent work and economic growth, the 15th, life on land, and the 13th, climate action. Together with the alignment of the SDGs, TTB is also aligned with the European Green Deal and the Paris Agenda. Indeed, its service, its aim to contribute to the target set by these two international agreements, such as no net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050, and keep an average increase in global temperature to 2 degrees, and of course enhance resilience and adaptation to climate impacts, in order to not to left any place or person behind, of course. More in detail, when we're talking about alignment of TTB service with the European Green Deal, we can see that the service aims to protect life zones and contribute to the net zero emissions, and also enables the growth of ecotourism sector, which is a resource saving. In addition, TTB will, as we have previously said, will not leave place or species behind. The main points of the Paris Agreement in which TTB service is indeed aligned are all the average increase in global temperature to 2, enhance resilience and adaptation, and align financial flows in the world with these objectives. What concerns the stakeholders, we can see in this slide how the main stakeholders are involved in different phases. Namely, citizens are going to be involved in phases 1, 2, and 5, consulting firms in the first phase, and then in the 4th and the 5th one, NGOs in the first 2 ones, and the last one, Earth observation specialists in the first 2 phases and the last 2 ones. National parks in the first one and the last one, governments in the first 2 ones and the last 2 ones, and environmental organizations in the first 2 ones and the last one. For what concerns the KDMs, we know that they must be present in all the phases. It's important in order to understand and in order to have a clear vision of TTB service to have a deep understanding of the Earth observation market, and in particular when we are talking about Earth observation, we are talking about gathering information about Earth's physical, chemical, and biological systems using technologies and involving satellites. And in particular, its application is really wide, so it can vary from land and marine and atmosphere monitoring, as well as environment, energy, and disaster management. It has a great economic value. It's estimated around 9.8 billion. And what's really interesting, it's its growth. Indeed, it's a market which is projected to have a huge growth in the following years. The upstream Earth observation industry, which TTB makes use to have the data that will afterwards analyze, makes use mainly of 2 sentinels. The first one is used to obtain data on forest fire scar mapping, and the second one is used to monitor the soil use and the land use changes. In this slide, we display in detail which is TTB service. In particular, we obtain and analyze data from the Earth observation midstream industry, and then we analyze them and we provide key factors and figures to our target customers in order to help them in tackle the loss of biodiversity and therefore protect species and develop a sustainable environment. In particular, in this slide, we have provided an example on how TTB service will work. Indeed, it will analyze the data on the climate zones, and it will identify the changes in the climate areas. Once that it will have identified these changes, then it will offer a consulting service, and it will suggest how to better manage these protected areas and where exactly to establish these biological corridors, which are aimed to help the species not to die.
The KDMs agreed on perform an intense analysis of the situation to get a bigger picture analysis and to establish TTB positioning in the EU market. So a 5C analysis was conducted. TTB identified that the service it distributes, which is the providing of EU technology with the aim to protect biodiversity and life zones, have potential customers such as governments, agencies and national parks that have an increasing interest in biodiversity and that have available funds to protect it. Also, adjust services of TTB might further interest the agricultural sector and NGOs. For the competition, currently a few players are active in the global market, which is expected to grow and to rise in the coming years. Technological differentiation between competitors is low, as they all rely on satellite imagery complemented with other sensors. TTB is highly reliant on high quality imagery and data from suppliers, and it also counts on partnerships with global and local NGOs to gain trust and credibility. That's why the relationship and stakeholder management should be a priority for the company. For the climate, finally, choosing the right target market is currently the main challenge for TTB, because the EU market is a local one with international players, but also diverse regional and local needs. And also, while the awareness for climate change is rising globally, regulations regarding EU and cultural propensity to technology are varying widely. For completeness, a pastel analysis was also conducted. So for the political aspect, TTB evolves in a solid and stable democratic system with intellectual property protection, varying taxation on technologies for environment preservation, and new government policies on climate change. Considering the economical aspect, TTB has to consider the economic growth rate, the funds availability to invest on technologies for environment preservation, and the disposable income of its potential clients. For the social aspect, it is favorable to TTB because there is an environmental awareness that is growing, knowledge on EU population as well, on EU technology as well, and TTB should also consider population growth rates and the different lifestyle habits. For the technological part, which is the most important, there is the technology's impact on biodiversity support. Also, the level of new innovation is to take into consideration, as the time to implement new technologies and the R&D progress. For the environmental side, there are those regulating climate change and the red spaces that are growing over the years, the climate change, the increasing CO2 emissions, and the NGOs' pressure on biodiversity preservation. For the legal aspect, TTB has to take into consideration big data legal framework, the employment laws, the copyright patents, the data protection, the climate change regulation, and the preservation of biodiversity laws. So the TOWS analysis was conducted to analyze the TTB competitive position. One of the TTB strengths is that the Earth observation meet a concrete and current need and put forward values that are likely to interest potential buyers. the weaknesses are the human resources and knowledge required to analyze EU data, and the low brand notoriety as it's a startup. On the other side, we have organizations, government, and local associations considering the preservation of their ecosystem that represent an opportunity for TTB. And we also have the difficulty to find investors and customers willing to pay for climate change, as well as the competitors that are increasingly present in the market that represent a threat for the company. So the strategies that TTB will have and will set up are the association with national authorities and governments with a common aim of limiting the effects of climate change. And the TTB will also take advantage of the development of EU to partner with experts and use their knowledge and equipments, and thus bridge technical and expertise barriers. Then TTBs know that the proven effectiveness of its technology, the concrete results, and the values supported by the team can convince investors and customers to trust and join them. And TTB can also count on alliances and partnerships to overcome competitions and benefit from external expertise and to get known. Considering the Porter 5 Force analysis, it has been conducted for a better understanding of the industry weaknesses and strengths. So a major rivalry among competitors was identified, as the number of competitors working at global scale is low, but it is expected to grow steeply. The threat of substitute was considered low because the use of in-situ data is more a complement than a substitute of satellite imagery, so as they do not provide the same type of data. A medium high power of buyer was considered, as it has a low number of clients that are mainly governments due to the high price of the service. A high power of supplier was defined, as there is a low number of them at the moment, and the business has a high level of dependence from them. And finally, the threat of new entrant is also low. It is an industry of economy of scale, and this demand certification and agreements, creating high barriers to entry. Considering the competition, several companies offering similar HEO services were analyzed, in particular Terracinia, Geobon, Radiant Earth Observation, Icon Groups, and NGSat. So the first competitor is Terracinia, that provides personalized solutions with in-house developed algorithms for different EU activities such as risk assessment or environmental monitoring, among others. So the KDMs considered this company as a direct competitors because it provides biodiversity-related services, more specifically EU services that monitor urban sprawl, forest gain and loss, forest fires, woodland vegetation, agricultural expansions, flood monitoring, land ecosystems, and biodiversity assessments. Then we have NGSat, that is a Brazilian company with the main goal of giving Brazil access to a vast range of satellites, image, and derived applications. Currently, this company delivers complete solutions, including data, software, and application. And it is particularly focused on sustainable developments and in the exploitation of resources from the environment to meet the need of the present population. Then we have Icon Group that provide not only EU services but also environmental monitoring, GIS, and spatial data analytics services. The main customers of this group are commercial and governmental agencies and also European institutions. Icon Group mainly maps and monitors dynamic land cover changes over time, providing assurance and detailed analysis in areas like, for instance, land cover change and thematic information extractions, ocean and coastal areas monitoring, and a large-scale forest inventory. Then we have Radiant Earth Observations. That is an American company that focuses on applying machine learning in HEO to meet the SDGs. This company has many services, but the one that addresses climate change and loss of biodiversity is the business unit that might threaten TTB. In this field, they provide land cover maps used to provide classification models, datasets, and indicators on water, snow, ice, woody, natural, and cultivated vegetations in specific areas. Finally, we have Geospatial. It is a part of the group on Earth Observations based in Germany. This competitor focuses on biodiversity, having created a big global network of activities related with biodiversity monitoring that is mainly oriented for national governments. This company also targets the community of scientifics as its customers. The team has identified some potential partners that will complement the company work and Earth observation data. Firstly, we have national biodiversity institutes or other environmental institutions that offer in situ data that will be very helpful as they will collect different types of data that TTB wouldn't be able to get with Earth observations tools. These institutes normally collect their data by field workers that record and classify ecosystem and species, do taxonomy and inventory collections. For example, we have the Biodiversity Monitoring Switzerland, that is an organization that dedicates exclusively to the in-ground monitoring of Switzerland biodiversity. Then we have research centers and groups that can foster connections between biodiversity monitoring and ecology and societal demands. They can help understanding the causes and consequences of biodiversity change, develop new methods and technology for biodiversity monitoring, counteract biodiversity loss in key taxonomic and functional groups of organisms, and foster scientific discovery, hypothesis generation, and predictive accuracy. With this, the TTB organization can give better insight and data interpretations. As an example, we have the ZBM Center for Biodiversity Monitoring and Conservation Science that focus on addressing the challenges facing worldwide biodiversity declines. To conclude with the competition analysis, we have some organizations such as Threatened Species Recovery Hub or such as BirdLife International that might be considered as indirect competitors. This company operates in the same field as TTBs, but their operations relied on different tools than the TTBs one, such as planes, helicopters, and more recently drones that provide the same and similar imagery, but that are cheaper. TTB defines some objectives and KPIs. So for the objectives, they are to find a geographical market, to create a service that satisfies all stakeholders, including devil's advocates, and to develop a sustainable competitive advantage enabling growth. For the KPIs, some of them are related to personnel and to the projects. So, for instance, we have the KDM satisfaction with team performance, understanding and application of VCW, and the understanding of EU service. And for the company and outcome related KPIs, we have, for instance, alignment with CGGs, a realistic and profitable financial plan, and positive feedback from potential customers and suppliers.
Moving on to the second phase of the value creation wheel. In this phase, induce, the goal was to generate as many ideas for solutions and filters as possible using various stakeholders. In the first stage of phase 2, we have 193 countries recognized by the United Nations or taken into consideration. In the second stage of phase 2, induced filters, an extensive list of filters was developed through the use of the 635 method. This method consists in several phases. First, 6 people sit around a table and write down ideas. Second, they pass their stack of ideas to the person who is sitting on the right, who builds on them. And this step is repeated as many times as people are in the group. And finally, the group sits together and evaluates the ideas. This process produced a total of 77 filters, categorized as we can see in the slide: company, economy and technology, industry, finance, government, and so on. Additionally, TTB interviewed several experts in the field of biodiversity, producing a total of 21 filters. Here we have an overview of the filters generated through the method just mentioned, and here we have an overview of the filters generated through the interviews. It also has to be mentioned that TTB asked during the interviews the main reasons why the project could fail. The experts highlighted several weak points, from concerns about data protection or cost of the service, to the possibility of the government not being interested in acquiring the service. Moving to phase 3, we decided to maintain the 193 countries selected in phase 2, since no reduction of options is supposed to happen at this stage. So we directly jump into the second and third stage of phase 3. The key decision makers identified the potential of each solution and filter coming from the previous phase. Also, the same experts approached on phase 2 were involved in process, contributing with their expertise to the filter creation. The key decision makers decide to set on an online meeting to analyze and validate each of the filters produced in phase 2. However, it was not possible to find reliable data available for some of the filters. So this stage had to be revisited twice before obtaining the final results. In the first round of the bucket method, these are the results we came up with. However, further purification was needed, and these are the final results we obtained: a total of 14 global filters and 3 local filters. In this slide, we can see an overview of the filters selected. In the left, we can see the different categories. Then on the right, the number of filters, the name of the filter, and the relevance attributed to each of the filter. We performed this table for all of the global filters and also the regional filters. And here we can have an overview of the different filters we came up with, as mentioned, categorized in high relevance, medium relevance, and low relevance for the market selection. Moving on to phase 4, we applied a value creation wheel funnel to determine the most appropriate entry market for a company. As a starting point, we considered, as mentioned, the 193 United Nations countries. As at this stage of the value creation wheel, there are no good or bad solutions. Then we ranked all final filters, as we saw, according to their relevance for the market selection in 3 categories: high, medium, and low. Each category, as it can be seen in this slide, prioritized different aspects. For instance, it can be seen that political, biodiverse, and operational factors were prioritized in the high relevance category, institutional integrity and use of land in the medium category, and financial and technological factors in the low category. As a result, we found that Australia was the most appropriate market, given all requirements. After that, we applied our selection of regional filters to determine which of the 7 regions of Australia was a better option. We found that Victoria was the most compatible region with the nature of our project. And in fact, we performed a more detailed analysis of Victoria, and we were really satisfied with the results. Victoria arises as the most appropriate market for TTB for several reasons. First of all, it's a very rich area in terms of biodiversity, with a significant percentage of unique species only in Victoria. It can also be seen that ecotourism plays an important role in Victoria's economy, accounting for 1.4 billion Australian dollars. However, Victoria has been experiencing an alarming loss of species in the last 200 years, a reason why the government is investing significant amounts of money in biodiversity preservation. Finally, we found a market opportunity in this region since, as an institutional report states, reliable data is needed to implement measures to tackle the problem and preserve biodiversity. And here is where TTB can help, providing that data.
Chosen region, Victoria, Australia, and we came up with 3 main competitors. They are all Australian companies, and also they work in several sectors, one of them being the environmental one. So the first one is GeoImage, that offers satellite imagery with advanced geospatial technologies with experience in several sectors, as already said, and their main values are commitment with excellence in quality and customer services. In the environmental sector, their customers are both the government and the private sector companies, and the company has experience in projects that involve tree clearing monitoring, floodplain analysis, counting animals, carbon capture, and much more. Then we have Geospatial Intelligence, which is specialized in providing geospatial data and analysis and analytics. This is turning all the collected data into valuable information. So this is a downstream company. And in the environmental sector, they have native fauna and flora population management, fresh water and wetlands management, monitoring vegetation health, density and change, and others. Finally, we have Spectrum Ecology, which is a company of locally based environmental consultants that focus on developing innovative solutions using different data sources, including obviously Earth observation data and creating several partnerships. In the environmental sector, the company provides both flora and vegetation and fauna assessments and surveys, and their team also has background in environmental rehabilitation, monitoring, which can be used for biodiversity matters. Furthermore, we did a comparison of these companies with TTB about the main characteristics of their service. There are several companies in Australia that offer Earth observation services, and also a few that already work on the environmental sector, as we just saw. However, these are more involved in other environmental causes, like, for example, natural disasters, than putting their efforts in biodiversity monitoring. So we chose a blue ocean strategy, as we concluded that the market wouldn't be entirely new, but the type of projects would. So TTB wouldn't face head-to-head competition. TTB only focuses on biodiversity, putting all efforts in one single area of expertise. And also the company differentiates in the service of real-time consulting and integration into end user. So about the segmentation, TTB has identified 4 main markets whose needs can be satisfied by the company's service. The first is the governmental authorities, and they have a really big interest in preserving biodiversity to safeguard the species that inhabit in the region. And they also have a big duty to meet the CDG's goals and internal achievements regarding protection of the environment. And they are also obviously interested in the income obtained by ecotourism activities. Secondly, we have associations that preserve biodiversity, and they have the need for more sophisticated and technological tools in order to save endangered species. And their mission is to preserve biodiversity and take care of the environment in high risk due to climate change's consequences. In third place, we have biodiversity consulting firms that need Earth observation images in order to provide more detailed information and insights to their customers and help them achieve the goal of preserving biodiversity. And finally, we have private firms whose business is linked to biodiversity. They also need Earth observation images in order to detect and forecast possible negative implications on their business and act on that accordingly. For our target, TTB decided to focus on governmental authorities that are attractive players in the sector. It was already mentioned the main reasons. The governmental authorities have a great amount of funding because of high concern on loss of biodiversity. They need a partnership with Earth observation specialists to collect information on climate sensitive areas. And then with that information, they can act to implement a plan aimed to prevent any further damage. So this is where TTB is useful for them. Also, they have an increasing interest because of climate change and following natural disasters that have direct impact on the population of the respective country. And together, they are also worried about the international agenda concerned on preserving biodiversity. And the ownership over the protected lands facilitates the installation of the equipment that TTB needs for monitoring, and the bureaucracy easiness to deal with legal restrictions and the satellites observation rights are a big advantage for TTB. Also, high interest on ecotourism, as already said, the preservation and protection of the Victorian lands and species is a great opportunity to increase the revenues on the ecotourism sector. Also, the team concluded that the potential buyers are Parks Victoria and Government of Victoria. The positioning, TTB decided to position itself as a strategic player in the downstream industry of the Earth observation chain, where the initial problem is the lack of information about Earth observation service and what the service can provide, and the lack of technical competencies to understand Earth observation images. And TTB has the solution. It has an analysis of Earth observation satellite images, acquisition of the most relevant information, and provision of the key data to Earth observation end users, which goal is to preserve biodiversity. So TTB's final positioning statement is for government authorities. TTB offers comprehensible and reliable reports and maps that enables decision-making to protect biodiversity at risks affected by climate change. Thanks to essential information collected by satellites' remote sensors, they have the tool to protect species and ecosystems on their territories. To compute the prototype of TTBs, it was conducted the Stamper method, doing a benchmark based on GeoImage, one of the three competitors that the team defined. And the final prototype for TTB was based to adapt, modify, and combine some of those things of GeoImage. So TTB goal is to work only on the environmental sector and focus mainly on biodiversity projects instead of working in different sectors like GeoImage. With that, the company is able to have more expertise employees on the specific field of biodiversity and not employees that are specialized in different fields. One thing that TTB wants to modify is the number of platforms for the end users. GeoImage has a big number of softwares and platforms to deliver their service, given the different types of projects that they have. But TTB aims to simplify this access to information, having only two platforms, the website and the app, that complement each other. So this leads to the combined factor. TTB will combine, of course, their website and their app, where the clients will have access to all the information they need. The former will have more detailed data, while the latter is less thorough, and the data will be presented in the form of schemes and graphs to facilitate the reading. So we came up with our prototype. A TTB website will be the first and main point of contact with the company's clients, and it will be very intuitive and easy to navigate. The clients can have access to all they need to know about TTB through the website, including service offered, past projects, recent news, and contacts if they have any doubt or want to get in touch. Furthermore, TTB clients also have the possibility of creating their own account, having access to all the data and respective consulting projects of their company. Furthermore, TTB will have their app for the clients who have a more rapid access to the information. By doing login in the app, they will have access to everything on their account online and offline, as all the data will be kept in the cloud. As the website, the app will be really easy to navigate, giving data in form of graphics and schemes. This is because TTB is aware of the complexity of Earth observation data and wants to facilitate the process of their clients when they need their information on a more rapid way. Then in the marketing mix on the product P, TTB, as already mentioned before, converts data from satellites imagery into essential information on temperature and surfaces, focused on biodiversity at high risk due to climate change. The main goal of the company is to enable decision making for our customers concerning the protection of biodiversity, thanks to the satellite's remote sensors. The promotion that the company wants to do is direct interaction with our target customers, digital promotion on social media, YouTube, TTB website, of course, demonstration in booths at climate change, tech events, and trade fairs, CEO to appear in the first results when a service like this is searched, email campaign to gain leads, and of course, word of mouth. Regarding the place, the target market is in Victoria, Australia. TTB service can be delivered through digital platform, the website or the app, and the headquarters are present to manage TTB services and to be a place of meeting with customers and partners. The support will be given online by video calls, and then the reports, data analytics will be available on the website, users' accounts, and on TTB's database. Regarding the price, the subscription based on pricing model has three options: premium, professional, and business. The monthly subscription contract to allow tailored prices according to needs. The terms of paying will be studied and defined according to each individual case, and the accepted means of paying are credit cards, invoice, and bank transfers. Furthermore, the process of TTBs is to connect with customers, sign contracts and discuss the options and budget, collect and deliver the data, translation of Earth observation data into the reports, of course, constant update of this Earth observation data, innovation and investments in R&D, as it is a very innovative field, and TTB needs to be upfront with these innovations. customers and partners relationships, support and after-sales services, and management of the website. For people, TTB has a human resources department, commercial development, engineers and scientists, of course, as it is a pretty scientific field with specific knowledge requirement, web designer to develop and maintain the website and the application, Earth observation experts, financial services, and sales customer services. The physical evidence of this service is the website that is available in many languages, the standardized design, sober, simple, and professional, TTB's logo, and maps and forecasts comprehensible for customers. The price details about the three options. TTB will offer these three different subscriptions, premium, professional, and business, varying according to the comprehensiveness of the service provided. Detailed and meticulous reports containing essential data to take strategic decisions concerning the preservation of biodiversity will be always delivered, as they are the base of TTB's service. It wouldn't make sense if some of the options wouldn't offer these reports. So professional plan offers, in addition, the possibility to have monthly meetings with TTB's experts in Earth observation in order to discuss some issues or doubts that can come up. The business plan allows the user to have access to monthly technical training in order to better understand and to have a critical mindset on the technicities presented in the reports and data delivered, leading eventually to gain technical autonomy.
We have now reached the fifth and last phase of the value creation wheel, which is consolidate value. In particular, as we have mentioned previously in the elevator pitch, TTBs will make use, of course, of the 3 M's in order to provide innovative and efficient solution. The first M is manpower, and we can see that TTB's team is made up of 5 people, and in particular, each of us is in charge of a different field. Madalena is the Chief Operating Officer, that is to say she is responsible for defining the company's strategies, setting up the goals and track TTB performance evolution. Myself, I'm the Chief Technology Officer and I'm responsible for managing the technological and digital parts of the company. Kay is going to be the representative of TTB and she's going to lead the meetings with the stakeholders and the partners. Alvaro's, it's going to be responsible for TTB's financial plan, and Sarah, it's going to be in charge of the marketing part. But we have assessed that we need to do HR investments. In particular, the company would need to hire a website and app developer and a data scientist with Earth observation knowledge. In this slide, we can see, thanks to these spider diagrams, how each of us, each of the team member is specialized in a different field. And this is the reason why we can offer a comprehensive outcome, because we can efficiently maximize the activities in each operation thanks to our knowledge. For what concerns the second M, which is minute, thanks to this Gantt chart, we can see the timing of each operation. In particular, for what concerns operations and sales, we have already identified and selected or identified the first target market, which, as we have said and mentioned in the previous phases, it's Victoria in Australia. And we have contacted the potential customers, in particular Park Victoria and the local government, which we think are the main potential customers. For what concerns the development of the technological applications, we are now actually working on recruiting an Earth observation expert, and subsequently, starting from February, we will develop analytic tools and the website app, thanks to the help of our HR investment. And for what concerns the pricing and the financial planning, we have done a financial plan, but of course it's not, we don't have a lot of data that we can base our assumptions on the financial plan. Therefore, we will build a more reliable one starting from February, thanks to the service and the research that we will do in the current month and in the following one. And eventually, for what concerns marketing and attracting the investors, we will try to work on the marketing part starting from February, and we will try to, once we have a clear view of our financial plan, so the money we will have to ask for to our investors, we will try to ask for help to business angels or venture capitalists. The money are indeed an important part, and they in this slide we display how the financial resources that we will need are going to be divided into the activity. In particular, 56% of the budget is going to be occupied and represented by salaries, and the second huge investment that we will have to make is on the technology. In particular, when we talk about technology, we are talking about both website and app development, and also we will need to buy the computers and the office equipments that will enable us to provide an efficient activity. In this slide, it's displayed the business model canvas of TTB, and in particular, through the business model canvas, we can have a clear view on how TTB is working. In particular, the TTB's key activities, which are buying Earth observation data from the midstream industry, analyze the data, and then offer a consultancy service. It's gonna be able, thanks to key suppliers that are namely Earth observation midstream industry, such as NASA and Copernicus, and the key partnerships with the Australian government, the biodiversity consultancy firms, and drone companies. In order to offer our activity, it's gonna be essential to have key resources. When we are talking about key resources, we mean key websites and softwares, appropriate Earth observation satellite images, the appropriate financial funds, and also the appropriate human resources. Moreover, what TTB aims to do is to build solid and durable relationship with its customers, which have been identified in governmental authorities and associations aimed to the preservation of biodiversity. And in particular, TTB will support a continuous feedback from the target segments. TTB service is going to be provided both through online channels, which comprehends emails, app, and website, but also through a physical channel, which is represented by the main office headquartered in Melbourne, and also decentralized smaller offices. Of course, we will TTB will came into costs, which are both fixed and variable. When we talk about fixed costs, we are talking about research and development expenses, acquisition of data, equipment needed, the cost to hire personnel, the salaries, and also variable costs such as marketing expenses and the founders' salaries, which are gonna be which will be depend mainly on the effort and the hours put on the project. For what concerns the revenue streams, TTB will work on providing different subscription plans, as we have already seen, and in particular, it will implement this service, which consists on reducing the fee for small associations which demonstrate to not have the financial availability for the consulting service. And this is indeed an effort that TTB will make in order to tackle loss of biodiversity and help the world to be more sustainable. So for what concerns the KPIs assessment, we can now say that the KDMs are definitely satisfied with the team performance. We have worked really well together and we came out with an efficient solution, which has indeed led us really satisfied. We have now a deep understanding of the value creation wheel and its application. And for what concerns the integration of the stakeholders and Davis advocate and the understanding of Earth Conservation Service, as well as the finding an appropriate market, we are still on the making because, of course, we will assess these KPIs in the following months. So there is still scope for improvement. For what concerns the company and outcome related KPIs, definitely our project is aligned with the SDGs, but there is room for improvement for what concerns the financial plan, the marketing campaign, and also providing efficient solutions for stakeholders and Davis advocates. And eventually, we are also working on having positive feedback from potential customers and suppliers, which we can definitely reach in the future thanks to the implementation of the service. So which are the following steps? So we are currently working on hiring an Earth observation experts and provide an efficient market campaign in order to have more surveys and research. And we have came in contact with Parks Victoria and local stakeholders, and we already have some feedbacks on our service. But we are still waiting for a reply from the 12th, which is the Department of Land and Development from Victoria, and we are definitely looking forward to it. For what concerns possible future outlooks, we have had insight from one of our interviewers, and in particular, it will be very interesting to expand the TTB service to the agriculture sector, private sector. Indeed, the farmers would actually pay to optimize the service, and have a more efficient land usage. Thank you so much for listening, and that's it from TTB.